art darlings, and welcome to another speed coloring. Today we have my zombie girl from last October's Inktober. Her design was a lot of fun to work with. I based it on another artist's idea of a zombie girl. I really liked how the brain was visible and she uses a wig to cover it up. I also like the pastel skin color pieces. The little flies buzzing around her head was a cute touch, or maybe gross, but I like how I drew them. This video is about what sparks joy for me. I don't know if I can talk for 10 minutes about that, but here we go. Okay, trying to write this script about what sparks joy for me is so tough because I don't want to just make a list of what sparks joy for me, but maybe how they spark joy? Perhaps this video will be my top 10 things that spark joy for me and how they do that. Number 1, I started getting into Pokemon back in the summer of 1997. I was at a day camp and some boys were playing with some cards. I asked them what they were doing, and of course they showed me their Pokemon cards. One of them gave me a Ponyta, and I fell in love with it. That evening, I asked my grandpa to take me, I'm dating myself here, to a Toys R Us. I got 2 packs and opened them when I got home. I was obsessed with it. I loved opening the packs and figuring out what cards I got, which ones were like really rare and which ones were common, which ones were in the middle. And from there, it became my whole personality. Every birthday was Pokemon themed from then on. My bedroom was Pokemon themed, my clothes, my art, everything became about Pokemon. It was when I was in 8th grade that I had this silly notion that I had to give up Pokemon since I was going to be in high school, and Pokemon seemed to be for the younger kids. I stripped my fan identity to try and be a normal teenager. I lost a part of myself. I didn't feel whole until I went to college and found out my roommates were playing the recent Pokemon game at the time. I regained that lost part of me and the joy started to come back. It didn't fully come back until I started dating my husband. He showed me I could be my goofy self and that liking Pokemon as an adult was okay. Anytime I see something Pokemon related now, I get thrown back to those first few years of getting into Pokemon, and a smile always comes back to my face. Number 2. Reading has been something I have always done since my grandpa would read to me at night. I love stepping into a world and getting lost for a couple hours to someone else's story. I get so invested in books that when it becomes an embarrassing moment for the protagonist, I get embarrassed as well and I can't keep reading. I have to speed through it just to keep the story going for me. There have been times that I've wanted to chuck my book across the room because either something bad happened to a character or the character did something bad. I have lightly tossed my book onto my bed and had to stand up and walk around to get the bad feeling to disperse before I could continue reading. Going to a bookstore is a calming place for me. I love to just walk around and see what is new or what book cover catches my eye or even the title. I'll read the back or the first page and see if it hooks me. I usually don't buy the book right there, so I take a picture or I make a note in my phone to buy it later. My goal last year, and I guess still this year, is to read for pleasure, to read as many books as I can in a year. I know reading is not a race, but I always have a long to-be-read list, and I always try to get it down to just 1 or 2 books before I buy more. Number 3. I started collecting anime figures when I went on my first trip to Japan. I fell in love with the designs of many of them and the details that were put into the bigger ones. I bought a couple and started my search on the internet for more. My husband helped with this collection and maybe addiction to collecting them. In the past 5 years since then, I have gained quite the collection. Not as big as others out there, but it's very much a collection of my choosing. I always enjoy the unboxing of them and trying to figure out where to put them on my shelves at home. The reason this sparks joy for me is because it's a hobby that it's all my own. From the age of 14 to 21, I didn't really have hobbies. I said I had some like photography and reading, but I didn't have a favorite book, a show, a movie. I couldn't choose one because I really hadn't done much. I worked on figuring out my hobbies and I have a list of them now. Some might be more expensive than others, but I can deal with that as an adult. If it brings a smile to my face and what makes me feel happy and content when I do it, then I will call it a hobby. Number 4, branching off of that idea, watching TV shows with my husband is a real treat. What brings me joy here is that we have so many inside jokes because we quote from the shows we watch. We can be making dinner and one of us will just say a word or a phrase and we will go off on a tangent with quotes from the show we are watching. It's also a fun way to bond with my husband. We can go down a rabbit hole about what we were watching, the actors, the place that it was shot at, the meaning behind a certain part of the show. It's all so grand. Plus, we can find common ground in the TV show along with our likes and dislikes of characters, setting, plot, etc. It's also a great way to spend time with my husband. We both get very busy schedules during the school year, so we might not get to hang out as much, but we can sit down for dinner and watch a few episodes of the show we are watching at that time and get to catch up on what happened that day or that week. Number 5. Trinket is my first pet that I can call my own. I've had pets in the past, but those were like hamsters and a dog. They were more family pets than things that I could call my own. Trinket has been the one I have truly cared for. When I first got her, she was a 2-year-old stray that didn't like people touching her. I fell in love with her to the moment I saw her at my mother-in-law's house. My mother-in-law loved to feed all the outdoor cats, so there she was just sitting on the porch eating wet cat food. After my husband and I moved into our first apartment together, he was still my boyfriend at the time, I did everything I could to bond with her. I also took her to the vet a couple of times because I was really worried about her health. She, to this day, is a very small cat. Once I got my first teaching job, I had to move to that city, so I didn't get to see Trinket that much. She, of course, bonded more with my husband, and I was really upset with that. But eventually, over the years, she has bonded with me, and I love seeing her greet me at the door after each workday. Number 6, traveling. Traveling, whether it's nationally or internationally, always gets my dopamine rising. I love going to new places and exploring. I always love packing and figuring out what to bring, what to wear, how to pack everything. I will say I do not enjoy long airplane flights, especially when I'm in the middle. I am a nervous bathroom goer. But nevertheless, I've gotten better over the years, and it doesn't stop me from enjoying myself on my trip. Number 7 goes along with the traveling section. I love going to amusement parks. I didn't when I was younger because I had a traumatic event with a roller coaster. It wasn't until I started dating my husband that he helped me get over my fear. Actually, it was a little girl named Millie who did that. I was on this roller coaster in the Mall of America and I was terrified because I had 2 loop-de-loops. I had never done loop-de-loops before. I was talking with my husband how nervous I was, but there was this little girl sitting with us in our row and she said her name and then she was like, "I'm 7 years old and I've been on this ride 8 times. That moment, I told myself it was time to woman up, and if the 7-year-old can take on this roller coaster and be fine, so will I. So anytime I go on a thrill ride for the first time, I think of her. She will never know the impact she had on me that day, so I want to thank you, Millie, wherever you are. Number 8. My favorite process in art making is sketching out an idea. I love coming up with different designs and getting messy with a sketch. I'm always sad when I have to go in and do the line art. I always enjoy my sketch pieces over my finished piece. Number 9. Bread pudding is my favorite dessert of all time. If I could see it on the menu, I have to eat it. The only thing I have to do now is learn how to make it, and someday I hope to accomplish that task. Number 10. My ADHD brain can't have things stay the same for very long. When I was younger, I would rearrange my room or what was in my nightstand or desk or in my closet. The same still happens to this day, only on a much smaller scale. Since I have a lot of bigger items that are too heavy for one person to lift, I do this with my art classroom. I enjoy changing and rearranging because it's nice to keep things fresh and new. I like to keep my students on their toes. The only thing I don't change for them is where important supplies are for them to find, like pencils or scissors. Well, there you have it. 10 things that spark joy for me and how. Or at least I hope I explained how. Let me know in the comments if you also agree with any of them that spark joy for you. Also, if you liked what you heard or see, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring that bell for notifications. And as always, to eat well, sleep well, and stay hydrated. Bye!